Alright guys, welcome back to Our World Outdoors. So today we're going to be doing a review of the Get Out Gear Down Puffy Camp Blanket.
You mean my camp blanket?
Your camp blanket?
It's mine.
What about me?
I just let you borrow it.
Really? So my wife's super selfish, as you can see. But yes, she has taken control of this, and I've only been allowed to take it on one trip. That's all she let me take it on. So she's done multiple trips with it. We're going to go over all the specs here. We're going to talk about it and ways you can use it that are actually very different from most normal summertime equivalent type down blankets. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about its brother, which is the synthetic version, which is the double down Puffy. Now, it comes in at 1.5 pounds and is fully synthetic. So if you're a vegan or if you're a person looking for synthetic because of moisture, I would tell you to go ahead and take a look at their product as well. It's just a kind of a brother product, sister product to this one to give you an open choice between down and synthetic. Now, moving on. This thing is treated with DWR, so it is water resistant. We never tell you that anything down is waterproof on this channel because we all know sooner or later they all get wet. Now, that said, it is a 20D ripstop nylon. Now, with that treatment on that ripstop nylon, it makes a huge difference because when you're actually in a hammock or a tent, it does not make that much noise at all. Okay, so let's talk about length and width. The website states out at 80 for the length, 54 for the width. We personally have measured it and it comes out more like about 75 to 76 on the length versus like 52, 53 on the width. So it is very close, and I'm sure if you stretched it out, but I just laid it down, measured it out with a tape measure the way you normally would, and those are the measurements we came up with. To have companies fudge those numbers is very normal, honestly. Almost every company does it, but I did want to let you know because I want to make sure you guys have all the pertinent information. Now, this is a 650 fill power down. Now, it is a duck down, so I just want to put this out there. Weight, 1.1 pounds is with the bag and everything. All right, there's a snap, there's the bag, but if you take the bag off of it and just sort of stuff it in there, it comes out almost exactly at 1 pound. Now, 1 pound for a top summer quilt, you know, 3-season quilt, that is not bad. That is right on point with a lot of the normal quilts that other manufacturers are putting out right now. Except this thing has some cool abilities that we're about to talk about. One is the poncho effect of this. So you can actually take the snaps that are all down one side, connect them together, and create a poncho. Now, this is something that can be very useful in them early spring and winter times, whether it's sitting by the fire at night, whether it's sitting in the tent in the morning drinking your coffee watching the sun come up. To have that draped around you, snapped on you, is so nice.
Be toasty warm.
And it could also kind of get you around bringing your Puffy with you if you were really trying to be ultra lightweight. Now, with that same snap together feature, you can actually take 2 of these blankets and connect them, say if you had a double cot, or if you were car camping, or even if you were using it at your house. So you can actually take 2 of these and connect them together. And it looks like I'm gonna have to buy my own because someone doesn't share.
Make sure you get a different color.
That said, the color, there is now a whole new color line for 2022. Back when we got this, because we picked this up months ago, that we had plenty of times to test it, it was actually only coming out in 2 colors. Now they've got a whole new color line for 2022. Feel free to go check it out, find a color that works for you. Now, we've talked about the colors, we've talked about synthetic, weight, length, all that stuff. Let's talk about the most important, price. Now, inflation's hitting everything, guys. The days of the $20 Costco down quilts, that's all over. Let's be real. Now, before all this happened, back in 2020, about February 2020, I started looking for her a new top quilt. Being in the hammock and stuff, ours are kind of heavy for the full-on summer, our top quilts. So when I started looking, everything was $50. Now, if you wanted to buy this, it's $69. Which, if you remember the Costco quilt days, that seems expensive, but go shop now. That is very much on the cheap side now. That is very cost effective. $69 for a full-on top quilt. And since I always have been referring back and forth to the two, the one thing you and me can agree on, A, this doesn't slide or make as much noise as a Costco quilt.
Yes.
Because that used to drive you crazy. And I didn't like it because when I go to kick my quilt up in my hammock at night to get it out of my way when I'm hot in the beginning of the night, I want it to stay there. And that Costco quilt would slide down every time right back at me and end up under my legs. This, the night I was at Zaleski, I pushed it up there and it actually stuck. It doesn't slide against itself. It has more of a catch factor.
It's pretty good in place where you put it.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. But it's also a lot bigger than a Costco quilt. There's a lot more material, a lot more down. It covers my body. A Costco quilt will not cover my body completely. I know it does yours slightly, but your feet can pop.
But I still like this. This does so much better.
Yes,
than
because
the Costco.
it covers over her and she can actually put the blanket under her feet and drop her heels so her feet don't pop out at night. So size is a difference because we've been comparing these two the whole time and I wanted to make sure you guys understood that. Now, let's talk about some trips, guys, because you guys know us, we want to use this gear and we're never nice to our gear. I'm sorry, we're just not. You know, you hear me talking about I'm literally kicking it up in the end of my hammock. That's really not how you should treat your gear, but I do. So honey, you took it out on way more trips than me because I wasn't allowed to take it.
So I've taken it out on 3 trips that I can think of. The first one was Mammoth Cave. That one was my first test of it and it worked great. Temperatures were, I believe they were in the mid 40s and I still did good with it. Like the temperature, I still stay toasty warm. Then I took it to Grayson Highlands. I was pretty impressed there because now I usually take the Costco quilts. They will accumulate some moisture in the fabric, like you can feel it in the fabric, and
Yeah.
I didn't in this. Like
Because
whenever I
that
put
was
it away,
rainy.
it was still dry. So
Yeah, that was a very rainy trip to the start, so
yeah,
I could see that. I could understand that.
And then whenever I took it out to Wildcat Hollow, it was super nice because I have a 0 degree top quilt, and it was so nice that my pack was so much lighter carrying this thing in the summer
Oh, instead of your
my other.
other quilt?
Yeah,
Yeah, that.
like the weight savings to me is like gold.
Yeah. Well, that's true. You carry our Perrias, you're going to be carrying pounds.
And I didn't know until recently that it did the poncho thing.
Yep.
But now I will certainly be using it that way and not taking my Puffy as often.
That's why she is quickly telling me that I'm not allowed to touch it no more on any trip because she actually is a cold sleeper and a cold morning person. So she can wrap up in that, sit at camp, and just enjoy. Now, I took it to Zaleski. I was actually pushing weight on myself, so taking that technically didn't help me, but I knew that I took my top quilt, I would not even get it out of my backpack because it's too hot for me in the spring and summer months. My 3 season honestly usually is a sheet. But I'm super glad I took that because at Camp 2 I was hanging that night and it actually got a little bit chilly. And actually in the middle of the night, I kind of pulled it up over me. And I can't imagine how much I definitely would have needed if you hadn't made me put my tarp up that night to block some wind because it actually got really cool that night. It started out sweating, but as the night went on, it got really cool. And I pulled it up and it was so amazing not to be fighting what part of me was going to be covered like I do with the Costco quilt.
Or trying to tuck it in more. Or
I mean, this thing has so much more size to it, it actually wraps around you really nicely. Now, after using this piece of equipment, I want to tell you guys that we're going to continue to beat the tar out of it. And we will come back, obviously, long term and tell you how it performs. I'm going to take it. You better, I'm just telling you. My wife will share. Actually, I'll make her buy me one then. But it's coming to a point where it's easy to say gear works by taking it out of the box, and you see a lot of unboxing videos. When we do videos, we want to have some trips in it, and then we want to turn around and come back to you 6 months to a year later and let you know at that point how it's performing for us, how it's held up. Take you into the stitching, see if it's, held up, if the edges are fraying, because we're gonna drag it through the worst that Ohio has to offer in all the surrounding states. So if she's wearing it as a poncho, it's gonna get tore up by thorns and thistles. It's gonna have insects get to it. It's gonna have moisture get to it. These are all real world things that happen on the trail, and I don't think they get talked about enough in these reviews. So with that said, I do believe this is an amazing product. I do believe that if you have a wife that steals gear like mine does, you should buy 2, or just don't tell her about it. Pick this thing up, take it out on the trail. I think you'll be greatly impressed with how it performs, the size, and the ability to not get wet, because that has been a thing. Down products we have, even our best down products, tend to like to pull moisture. So Missy coming back from the Grayson Highlands after all that rain and all of that, and not having a soaked blanket really impressed me. I think at the price point and everything, you're gonna be very satisfied. So with that said, if you haven't already, and I don't know why you wouldn't have, go down, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you see all of our upcoming videos. Make sure you like the video. Go down in the comments, let us know what your go-to for summertime quilt is, if you tried any of the Get Out Gear blankets, and what you think of them. And with that said, honey,
We will see you up the trail.
now you're gonna let... Really?
I might get you one.
Really?
Okay, you can hold it. Carry it back to the house for me.
Really?